Hello, I'm Charlotte Robinson. I'm a straight transgender woman and I work for InterEng, where I'm the co-chair of the Midlands region. When I studied at university, I didn't really identify that much as an LGBT person. I kind of assumed that I was a straight cisgender man on the basis that I didn't have any kind of strong feelings that I wasn't. Leading up to that point, I'd always felt quite uncomfortable as a man, and I hadn't really got much of an opinion on kind of sexuality or gender identity. It was only really within the third year of my degree that I started experimenting at all with my gender identity, and I suppose my sexuality to an extent as well. Up to that point, I'd kind of identified as heterosexual, but I suppose really it was more asexual. There was a point where I kind of identified as bisexual at a time, but that was very brief. Kind of, I wasn't interested in either men or women, so was I maybe bisexual? It was only really after I left university that I came out as fully being transgender. One thing that does stick in my mind though was we went to a gay bar once. One of my friends took me to a gay bar, and it was a very uncomfortable experience. I went to university in Sheffield, and when you go to Sheffield, there's one or two gay men dancing in a gay bar in the middle of the week. It's quite an odd experience, especially if you identify as straight or really don't have an opinion either way on your kind of sexuality and gender identity. So that was quite an uncomfortable experience. I suppose it was a little bit uncomfortable because I knew that I wasn't kind of cis-het, but I didn't really understand why or how I wasn't. So it was something that I kind of struggled with a bit while I was trying to come to terms with that. At the end of my third year of university, I went out and did an internship with a small company in Derby. There was certainly very little LGBT diversity within the company, but there was some LGBT diversity within the companies surrounding that company. And there was quite a few kind of disparaging remarks that were made, which kind of was very demoralising, I suppose. And so I felt that I couldn't transition within that company. I couldn't come out to people and say, actually, you know what, I am trans and I want to transition. And after a year, I decided not to go back to university. I decided to go out and get a proper job, a full-time job, rather than an internship, and go out and to get a job in engineering, and railway engineering is what I was working in and what I still work in today. And I went to a bigger company in Birmingham that operates trains and maintains trains. And I went out and started working in a railway depot. And I was a little bit nervous at first because obviously if you're working in an office and people are quite disparaging towards LGBT people, and then you move out onto the shop floor, onto a company that predominantly works with the maintenance of trains. There's a lot of the people are kind of less educated. They've not been exposed to university and the kind of the liberalism that you'd expect people to have at university. So I was expecting it to be a bit harder, but I knew that I'd have to go in, and I knew that I had to transition. I waited about 10 weeks until my probation had nearly elapsed, and I had a meeting with the engineering director, and I went in and said to him, you know, I had a normal meeting and just a very general things that he wanted me to do, things that, how is it going, and then it got to the end of the meeting and I'd kind of I'd had meetings with him before and always regretted walking out and not having said, actually I want to transition. And it got to the end of the meeting and he said, is there anything you want to discuss? And I said, yeah, I want to transition. And he said, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by transition? And that was just it felt like a bit of a kick in the teeth really, because it had taken so much effort to get it out at all that I said, I want to transition. And then suddenly I found myself explaining and saying, look, I'm transgender and I want to live the rest of my life as a woman. And I could see on his face that he was a bit shocked, but he was very supportive, and he passed it on to HR, and HR eventually kind of got back to me. It seemed to take quite a long time for that to happen, but they got back to me and they said, well, what do you want us to do? And we discussed it, and 6 months later, having had a lot of meetings with HR, and I can only really say HR has been really, really positive experience with them. 6 months later, I transitioned at work, which was about 3 months ago, just under 3 months ago, I transitioned. So that was a really positive experience. And I was expecting people to be very disparaging again, because obviously it's not just trans people. At my old company, it was trans people that you saw around and about who worked for suppliers, who worked for clients. And it was coming back and you were saying, well, there were some disparaging remarks, and these were from people who mainly got degrees and were chartered engineers, and to suddenly walk into a depot environment where everyone was technician trained, they'd done their apprenticeships, they'd not been exposed so much to the liberal atmosphere of university. To be more accepted by them was quite a strange feeling, but everyone has accepted it really, really positively. From the cleaners and the labourers on the shop floor to the management, they've all been really positive about it. I think the most challenging aspect was probably the logistics of it. I knew that if I went in from nothing and one day everyone knew me as a man, and then suddenly I was going in as a woman, then it'd be a problem. So I tried to limit that, and I tried to stagger what I did as a man and as a woman. And I started off doing social things as a woman while I was doing everything else as a man, and then I started working from there. I started moving towards doing more professional things. So that's when I joined InterEng. I joined InterEng and actually became the co-chair of the Midlands region before I transitioned at work, and that gave me a really good, positive kind of stepping stone into transitioning at work, I feel, because it was something that I managed to do. It was something that I did, and I started getting the experience of presenting as a woman, presenting as myself in a professional environment. And then I did various other things, and there was a point just before I transitioned where I was working as a man, but then I was leaving work, and 3 days a week I'd be going and getting changed and presenting as a woman to go and do professional things such as InterEng and visiting other LGBT groups. And then so that the logistics of coming out of work and getting changed and going back as a woman was really difficult, and there was also a slight fear as well that someone would kind of meet me, or I'd meet someone that I knew but who didn't know that I was trans, and I'd come out of work, get changed, go somewhere and bump into someone, and they'd say, oh, I know you, I was working with you, you were a man 2 hours ago. So there's obviously the worry about that. So it's really, having transitioned at work, I had no issues at all with the people that I work with, but it was just so difficult to live a double life, because that's how it felt to me. It felt like it was a double life, that I was living partly as a man and mainly as a woman, and now I feel that I can live my whole life authentically as a woman. So when I transitioned at work, I noticed that there was another massive boost in confidence for me, because it was just such a big thing to have transitioned, and for suddenly everyone being very accepting of who I was another massive confidence boost, really. The main piece of advice I'd say is to be yourself, because, as I've said earlier, it was such a massive boost to my confidence. It was such a massive boost to my professional capability, I suppose, because that confidence allowed me to ask the questions and do engineering as I suppose it should be done. So my main piece of advice is to come out and not to be scared about coming out at work, because everyone that I've met has been to a person. They've been amazing about it. They've given me so much more support. They've been so much more friendly than when I was kind of having a veil over who I was. I think the most important thing about choosing engineering as a career is making sure that that's what you want to do. I went into engineering because I have a passion for making the world a better place. That's why I went into engineering. I want to make the world a much better place by changing systems and changing physical objects to change and to improve things. And that was really what drove me into engineering, and that's still what drives me today.